Hello and welcome back to my small little library. Today I thought let's talk about the books that I DNF'd. So the books that I personally disliked so much that I could not continue reading them, or that I just felt it wasn't worth it, because I just thought about it, I recommend the books that I like, which makes sense, because I like them. So obviously I want to recommend them to people because I think they should be read. But we are all so different, and I know that a lot of these books are really loved by other people, and so I thought, why not highlight the books that I personally didn't like and why I didn't like them? Because maybe you're watching this video and then you can see, oh, she didn't like it because of that, but I really like that in books, so maybe I should pick the book up. So yeah, let's talk about these books. I have all of them except for two. Two I gave to my best friend, because I felt like she would really like them, and so why should the books stay in my shelves when she would actually read them? So I gave them to her, so I will just blend the cover in for those. But the rest of them I do actually still own, and one I also keep on my shelves that are visible, and the other ones are kind of like hidden in like the storage area because I haven't decided what I will do with them yet. We are going from like the oldest to the newest. I only ever DNF'd 9 books because for the longest time I was somebody who either forced themselves to finish the books or was like, okay, I don't like it at the moment, but I will give it a second chance. So they went back onto my TBR, which I'm sitting in front of my TBR shelves, So that is why I only have 9 books that I DNF'd since being on Goodreads, which is already like 3-4 years, I think 3.5 maybe. So that is quite some time and only 9 DNF books. The first book is a Dan Brown book, and that is Deception Point. This is one of these standalone books. I actually forced myself to finish the Robert Langdon series. Really loved the beginning, really disliked the ending. But because I already read like most of the series, I forced myself to finish that one. But Deception Point, I just couldn't get through. This is way too big. It's pretty much kind of a thriller. You have the NASA and an intelligence agency, and they are working at the Arctic Circle because they found something in the ice, and then they all have to flee something. And it's kind of like a mystery thriller kind of thing, but like with the focus on NASA and the scientists and, secrets and stuff like that. And this was so boring. I really liked the other books, like even the, what's it called? Digital Fortress, the other standalone by Dan Brown I've read. I liked that one, that was about a code break, and that was really interesting. But this one is just so long and was so boring because most of the beginning was just simply politics, and yeah, I just couldn't make my way through it. It's not because it's a particularly bad book, it's just that I found the topic to be really boring, and that made me not want to finish it. And this was the first book where I actually was like, you know what, you don't have to finish it if you don't want to finish it. You have so many other books you want to read, put it away. But I think that is also one of Dan Brown's least liked books out there. And then the next one I was actually really sad about, but that is 6 Crimson Cranes. I really like the design of the book. This is pretty much like your typical fairy tale retelling / love story, young adult fantasy that came out over the years. This one I got in 2022. Or like ending of 2021, and I got it in 2021 and I DNF'd it in 2022 when I read it. It has like 6 enchanted cranes. It's based on, I think, I don't want to say anything wrong, but it is based on mythology. I want to say Chinese mythology, but to be totally honest, I'm not sure. But the main character is relatively young, and she gets married off, or she's supposed to be married off. You have the mean stepmom. The setting was really cool. I just couldn't really deal with the characters. I really didn't like any of the main characters. I think I like the concept of the story, you know, you have the princess and she's supposed to be prepared to get married off. She doesn't really want to do that, you know, it's like a really classical story in that sense. And then her brothers, they all got turned into cranes and she kind of like gets, I don't think she gets kidnapped, but I think for some reason she lands in like a really far away country and nobody knows who she is and she can't talk. Something like that, I think. And the story goes from there. But I don't know, I didn't click with any of the characters, and you know, if you read a book and you really don't feel anything for the characters, that was the problem I had with this one. And I don't know why, because I don't think that the book particularly did anything wrong. It is a really liked book. It has 4.2 stars on Goodreads, so it isn't like it's not a liked book, you know? I just never connected with the book. And yeah, this one still is on my shelves because I really like the look of it. At some point I read some reviews and did spoil me the ending, and I really wasn't sad that I didn't read up to the ending. I didn't think that the book was really special when it comes to the story, because it's one of those, you know, really generic feeling princess stories, fairy tale stories, you know, and I just wasn't impressed, to be honest, which I always feel really sad if I like don't feel impressed with a book, but you can't like everything. You see why I have such a hard time DNFing books. But yeah, I did DNF it because I kept putting it to the side, you know. But I feel like if you like those fairy tale princess stories, that one is a really good one. It's just that it didn't work out for me. Then we have the one German book on this list, and that is Das Paket, or The Package, by Sebastian Fitzek, and this is a thriller. He only writes thrillers as far as I know, but he is pretty much known for writing one good book and then one bad book, and pretty much switching between the two, which I found to be really interesting, but that seems to be the general census with people who read him. This one is about a woman who has a really hard childhood. Her parents really don't care about her, and she grows up, and then I think she's a psychiatrist, but she's pretty much at the beginning at like a conference, and somehow like she feels like the victim. I really didn't read much of this book because right from the beginning it was like a typical story of like a woman, and she's so insecure and so damaged, which I hate describing people as damaged, but that is, I think, what most people would describe it as. And so she just spirals directly. There's never anything normal in this book. Like right from the beginning, you're spiraling with the character, and I found her to be so unlikable that I didn't want to know what the book was about. So it might be that this is one of the ones that people generally don't like. I have no idea, because after that one I haven't read anything from him, because this just wasn't a good introduction to him. So yeah, I'm not really sure, but yeah, she was just whining, she was spiraling. I didn't enjoy her character one bit, just from the beginning. She was really weird to other people, even though they haven't done anything to her, and I'm pretty sure that it will probably be explained at some point, but I just didn't want to read until that point, you get me? So yeah, I think the book just did a really, really bad start, and that made me not want to continue with the book. It might be that the book will continue like way better, but just because I dislike the beginning so much, I put it away directly, because it's just not worth it if I start the book and already dislike it. Then we have The Rule of Four by Ian Caldwell and Dustin Thomason. This is pretty much a bad retelling of Angels and Demons, the first Robert Langdon Dan Brown series, just set at a college. The people are really weird. It was really boring. It reminded me, like, it really felt forced to feel like a Robert Langdon novel, that I really disliked it. From the beginning, I would have rather read Angels and Demons again. I guess probably if you haven't read the Dan Brown books about Robert Langdon, maybe that would work for you, because you obviously haven't read the other ones, but these feel so similar. It's the same thing as like, you know, seeing signs everywhere and getting into danger, trying to save a problem, in this case the rule of law. But yeah, no, it's the, yeah, it's like a really, really rare book that they try to decipher and figure out. But it plays out so similar to the Dan Brown books in like how the books are written and like how the journey goes and how the complete concept of the book is supposed to work, that it just felt like I was reading something that I've already read, so much so that I didn't really want to read it because it felt like I already did that. So yeah, this is one of those I would actually not recommend. I don't think that most people will like these ones. I would always say just rather read Dan Brown, the first 3 in the Robert Langdon series, but you know, maybe you want to start with that one and then Dan Brown isn't for you, you know, that's always a possibility. Then we have one, I think this one was the biggest disappointment for me, and that is A Peculiar Peril by Jeff Vandermeer. I am a big fan of Area X, especially like the first book, Annihilation. I love that book so much. Love the movie, love the book. So I picked this up, thinking that maybe it's like kind of similar, but this is a YA book, and it's a fantasy, and it's just crammed full of like weird things. There's not really much likable about the main character. He just, you know, he's a teenager. It's not a parent, I think it's an uncle, dies, and he leaves him the house, and so he has the task to clean out the house, and the more he cleans, the more he finds weird stuff, and then he finds some doors that bring him into this fantasy world, and from there on everything gets weird. And he then has some friends coming to help him, and instead of being open and honest with the friends, he just keeps everything from them, which just only ends in chaos, and it was so annoying that I stopped reading. It felt too much, too overdone, and so unrealistic from like how the humans behaved that I really didn't know why he did that. I feel like in Annihilation and Area X was so good with the characters. Why is this so bad with the characters? I just couldn't get it. And then it's also like this really massive book. And yeah, I don't like it. I think, well, to be honest, I have another book by Jeff Vandermeer that I started, put away. I haven't DNF'd that yet because I'm just not sure about it. But I don't know. I'm at the point where I think maybe Annihilation and Area X, like the complete trilogy, were like an outlier, and maybe all of his other books are just weird. But I haven't decided that yet. But this one, definitely nothing I would pick up. It doesn't really have good reviews online as well. It's just a weird book that really, you know, you forgot what it's about directly. It's just really not interesting. It doesn't keep your attention, and the main characters just aren't likable at all. And so, yeah, why would I keep reading it if I don't like anything about it? We're coming to the 2 books that I gifted away. The first one we have is Afterlove by Tanya Byrne. I did start reading that. I'm gonna put the cover here. It's a love story, and I don't like love stories, which I realized that I probably wouldn't like it. But the description is just simply that there are 2 girls. Our main character is from an Indian family, and then the other one is like pretty British, like a really British person. And they obviously live in England. And our main girl, like the blurb tells you that she dies, and then she joins this like girl Reaper squad and has to help souls cross. But her only goal is getting back to the girl because obviously she's in love with her. But I read like the first 100 pages, and the book has like 350, so it's not like a super big book. And the first 100 pages, she still didn't die. So it felt less like, you know, a supernatural novel with a romance, and more like a romance with a little bit of supernatural in the end. So yeah, I put it away because I'm just not interested in romance novels that are focused on the romance part of the relationship. I like the more smart stuff, but I'm not the biggest fan of romance. It's just, I don't know. I'm also not a romantic person in normal life, so maybe that is why. But yeah, so I put it away because it's just not a genre I enjoy, and it had less fantasy than I would have expected from the blurb, and I was really sad about that because I would have loved the Reaper part, but after 100 pages and still seeing nothing coming in that point, just really disappointed me. I guess it's probably not a bad book. It's just really not my genre. So if you like romance novels and you like a little bit of supernatural stuff in there, maybe pick it up. I really can't tell you anything else. I like the writing style. The book felt really, really easy to read, and it really had a good flow, so it was a quick read. The 100 pages that I read, just not a topic I enjoyed. And then the next one was one I had a little bit more problems with, and that was Her Majesty's Royal Coven by Juno Dawson. And that one had too much of an agenda at my point. It felt like it should have been a non-fiction book, but it was a fiction book, and even though the agenda is totally like legit, because it's a book by a queer person, and you have Her Majesty's Royal Coven, like it's a book about witches, and you have this friend group where, one is black, one is lesbian, you have like different groups represented in the friend group, and then they got older and they grow apart for different reasons, and then you have obviously were all trying to get into Her Majesty's Royal Coven, and then the black friend is like, why are they all white, and she pretty much makes her own coven, and it's not like she couldn't have gotten into the Royal Majesty's Coven. She didn't want to, so she makes her own coven where only black people can join, seemingly, as far as I was into the book. And the biggest problem I had with the book, and it's only witches, and then you have the warlocks, so the male mages, and those were like, they weren't allowed kind of to do magic because they did like a really, really bad thing, and the witches had to clean up, so it was kind of like women against men, kind of, and it was really weird because it all felt like one big agenda, but so forced and not at all naturally put into the story. Like, all of the characters are really one-dimensional. Like, the Black Witch, the only thing she has going for herself is that she's black. The one that is, I think she's gay. The only thing she has going for herself is that she's gay. And that is with all of the characters in the book. And it felt so weird because why would I want that, It felt really like somebody who wanted to write a non-fiction book, but they felt like it's better if they write a fiction book. And so they wrote a fiction book, but they put all of the agendas in there that they felt were like a problem. And a lot of them are totally legit, It's just, it felt so wrong in the book because it didn't sit well in the story, It just felt like a setup to show one-dimensional characters, which humans aren't one-dimensional, that's just not how it is. And yeah, I don't know. You had the bitch of the group, which was really obvious just from the beginning, and it just felt so, I don't know, so on the nose. Yeah, it just felt really off, and I didn't understand that. So yeah, it really wasn't a book for me. But I gave it to my friend because she studies social studies, so it's probably more hers. I personally dislike strong agendas in my books, especially if it's fiction. I read a lot of non-fiction. I do enjoy a book about important topics. It's just when I feel like my fiction got hijacked by somebody with an agenda, I'm personally really not that interested in it, and I didn't enjoy it. And so all of the characters also felt really unlikable. Like, there was only one character in there that I liked at all, and the rest of them were also unlikable because they obviously only like displayed one facet of a person, and everything else was so blank that it felt really, really off. So yeah, that one left me really disappointed because I really wanted to like it, because there are a lot of people out there who like it, which I guess you would want a book with like teaching like important topics, but I feel like that wasn't the way to go. So yeah, you don't have to agree with me, but that is how I feel about that book, and I really, really didn't get it. Now, we have 2 books left. So, the next one is Shanghai Mortal by A.Y. Chow. I really like the concept of the story. You have our main character. She is part vampire, part nine-tailed fox ghost. I don't know. I'm not the best with like mythology when it comes to Japan, China, all of those countries, to be honest. I don't know a lot about the mythology. Like, I studied like Greek and Roman mythology and stuff, and Egyptian mythology, so I know a lot about that, but, well, I don't know a lot about mythology like any other country is, essentially. But yeah, so she's that kind of a weird mix, and for some reason she got sold off to the devil, and she can switch between the overworld and the underworld, and she has to pay off a debt, essentially. The thing is, our main character, she looks like a young adult, like teenager in the book, but she's already 100 years old. Because obviously she is a mythical being, pretty much. And she talks and behaves like a 6-year-old. That was it for me, because the whole book through, she's whining, she's throwing temper tantrums. I read like nearly halfway through, and she's just like a little child being the whole way through like, I don't want to do that, you're so mean to me. The whole way through that I read. It just wasn't fun. There was nothing interesting in the book. Like, the mythology was really interesting, but like, story-wise, it's just her whining that she doesn't want to do it. Life is so unfair. Everybody's mean to her. She's really, really clumsy, and that is such a big part of her personality. It's really weird. It's just, I don't get it. So yeah, pretty much it's just a woe me novel. Everybody's so mean to me. Really a bad main character for the novel. The rest was really interesting. Like, I really liked seeing all of the gods and what they did, and getting a little bit of like a different mythology in the book, but I felt like the main character just really destroyed all of that with her weird behavior. Not a lot of fun there. And then we're coming to the newest one, which it's not long ago that I DNF'd this, and that is A Study in Drowning by Ava Reed. I was really sad about DNFing this, but I just couldn't get through it. I don't really want to talk about it. No, it's a book about books. It's a historical fiction, and we have a female main character. The only thing she's allowed to study is architecture, even though she wanted to study writing, but she isn't allowed to. It's like a fictional setting with like 2 countries pretty much, and they split the main city, and so there's a war between them, but they are in like a down phase of the war. And so yeah, she wanted to study writing, she's not allowed to, so she settles with architecture, and she's really unhappy with that. And so what she does is go out and lend some books from the library about her favorite author, who is also kind of like, they freeze authors, they put them in kind of pots, and then they are supposed to protect the country. It's a weird thing. I don't know. It didn't really play a big role in the book. And so at one point there's like a bulletin board, and on that bulletin board is like a paper that says, her favorite author, his mansion, like, he died, and his mansion is supposed to be renovated, and the architects can pretty much submit a prototype, and the architect that gets chosen can then go out to the manor and, fix it. And so she does that, and for some reason she gets chosen, even though in her description she really isn't that good of an architect. And she's obviously just started studying. And so she's allowed to do that, and then she goes there, and for preparation she wants to get some books, and all of the books are lended out already. And when she comes to the manor of the author, there's another student there who is half from her country, half from the other country. So he's in a really bad position, let's be honest. And they dislike them, like, each other, like, straight from the beginning. But the thing is, our female main character, she's so unhappy with her life because she isn't allowed to do what she wants to do, but she behaves so weirdly. And then from there, pretty much, the guy who is there, who is a writing major, he wants to debunk the author, because he talks about like fairies and stuff like that, but I always felt like in a fiction sense, but our female main character, she thinks that all of the beings are real, you know, that there actually is something like the world he describes, and the other one is like, oh no, it's all fake, and I can, you know, I want to be able to prove that, pretty much. And then at some point in the story, for some reason, she then just decides to help him write the essay. Because the house is really dilapidated and she feels really out of her depth. And then the solution from her is, okay, I help you. Why? There's no reason to. She hated him before that. So she's just really volatile. And, I mean, it's probably what the author wanted to do, but I felt so uncomfortable reading the story because the main characters were so uncomfortable in their interaction with each other, and then they want me to believe that they can have a kind of relationship which wasn't there, and then from one moment to the next, it's like, oh, maybe he isn't as bad, or maybe he's attractive, maybe, and it's so weird. Why? Not every novel needs to be an enemies to lovers novel. It's really not necessary, and I felt that is what the book wanted to do, so I put it away. The world seems really interesting. The meta is really interesting. Just like the supporting story seemed really interesting. Just the main characters didn't mesh it all together, and they wanted me to believe that they could be a couple, or like get to be a couple, which no, not at all. So yeah, I put it away. It was less about books and more about stupid people. And yeah, I don't know. Sometimes you just don't mesh with the main character. But you know, if you're into historical fiction with a little bit of fantasy, it might be for you. If you like enemies to lovers, maybe that's a bonus point. I don't. But yeah, so maybe look at it and maybe it's for you. It's just not for me. So those are all of the 9 books. I talked way too much, so hopefully I can cut this down to something that isn't too long. But yeah, those are the 9 books I DNF'd and the reason why I DNF'd them. So yeah, if you see a book that maybe you think, oh well, I would love that, here are some books that I normally don't recommend because I didn't enjoy them. So yeah, I think that might be, like, if I get more DNFs, which is likely, like I have a lot of books on my TBR, I think like maybe like once a year, twice a year, I will do a video like this, just for people who don't normally have the same taste in books as me, or like not always. These videos I think might be interesting to whatever books I didn't like. So yeah, I still haven't decided what I will do with the books. Some I really like the look of, so I might keep them because of that. Others I might just give to a secondhand shop, I think. I have to see what I will do with that. But yeah, I hope you enjoyed this little foray into the DNFs that I DNF'd. And yeah, hopefully I will see you in the next video. Bye bye!